Hi everyone. Have you heard about the Works Clearinghouse? If not, you are in for a treat. In this video, you're going to learn about this valuable free service that can get you instant access to current, trustworthy information about the curricula and methods that you're using in your classroom right now. And you can find out whether or not what you're using is as good as it could be. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on this valuable information. I'll see you on the other side of the logo. Let's go. Hey there, lovely people. It's your favorite YouTube teacher, Dr. Sitchy Parker, and I am beyond grateful that you've decided to tune into my Teaching Coach channel. I am truly humbled by the amazing support that our community has received so far, and I want to give you a big shout out to all our subscribers. You guys are out there changing lives, and I'm so happy to be working here to give you some support. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the team. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can be part of the action and never miss out on any of our awesome content. It's free and you'll never miss an episode. Now, I don't know if you've run into this problem yet, but when I was a beginning teacher, I was never quite sure if what I was doing was what I should have been doing or not. All the curriculum I was using was just what was handed to me when I arrived, and the methods were the things that I had been taught to do by my teachers when I was in high school. Tradition has been one of the most powerful reasons for doing what we do in American schools, whether those traditions help student outcomes or not. So what is a newbie teacher to do? Or really, what is any teacher to do other than maybe go get a master's degree in curriculum and instruction? Well, I have the answer for that. You can consult with the Works Clearinghouse. Now, before I jump right into sharing all the coolness of the Works Clearinghouse, I need to tell you a little history to set this all up. Hold on, don't click away. I promise this won't be boring. Shortly after World War II, Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during the war, told the British Parliament that those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. We are having enough troubles in education right now that it definitely wouldn't hurt if a few more of us took a minute to contemplate our educational history so that we don't fall into the trap of repeating the same mistakes that have already been made. So, let's go back to 2001 when President George W. Bush signed the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that was subtitled No Child Left Behind. No doubt many of you were students when this passed, or you at least spent many of your school-age years living in its consequences. President Bush proclaimed that this legislation fulfilled 4 pillars of his educational policy. These 4 pillars, which for better or worse, help set the stage for where American education is today. Pillar number 1 was stronger accountability. This pillar led to a marked increase in the reliance on standardized testing for determining individual student success and the success of schools and school districts. Pillar 2 was expanded flexibility and local control. Schools in the United States have always been set up with more local control than schools in many other countries because we use local school boards to run each school district. But these changes abolished specific federal programs and lumped federal money into one big check instead of funding each federal mandate with adequate funding. Well, there had always been federal laws that had to be followed, but didn't come with enough money for local districts to follow those laws without cutting other places. These mandates were able to grow with no expectation of being funded. One positive thing it did, in my opinion, is that it allowed some special education money to be used to support students headed into special ed, get some services to help them avoid being labeled as disabled. Pillar 3 was expanded options for parents. Originally, these expanded options were for tutoring and after-school programs for students who were enrolled at schools that were determined to be failing. But these expanded options have opened the door to providing vouchers for parents to use outside of public school systems and have served as a basis for school choice vouchers, which in some states are using taxpayer money to pay for tuition at private or religious schools. Finally, Pillar 4 is putting an emphasis on teaching methods that have been proven to work. This is where the Works Clearinghouse comes in. This pillar required schools to adopt methods and curricula that have been proven their worth through scientifically based research. a phrase that appeared in the law more than 110 times. At the time, however, no one really knew what that meant, and it made a lot of people quite worried. They were worried because there wasn't one location where all that information on teaching methods and curricula was stored that could be easily accessed by school personnel. So school administrators wondered if they were going to have to become verified legal experts in educational science or risk being held legally accountable to a standard that they didn't even know existed. So, to solve this dilemma, the U.S. Department of Education created a division called the Institute of Educational Sciences in 2002 to become a warehouse of this information. They have continued pulling together this information, at least until the date of this video, which is April 2023, and we all have benefited from it because we have free access to all of this research. Fast forward to now, and the What Works Clearinghouse is, in their words, a central and trusted source of scientific evidence on education programs, products, practices, and policies. So you can access it at http://ies.ed.gov/ncee/wwc/. But it's just as easy to Google What Works Clearinghouse. There are 4 main points of entry into the information contained in the clearinghouse, but I'm only going to show you 2 of them. The other 2 are more of interest for researchers. We're going to look at practice guides and intervention reports. Practice guides. There are 29 practice guides on a variety of topics. They are like a summary review of all the best pieces of research on each of the topics. Whereas individual studies look at small slices of interventions, these practice guides look at a wider variety of studies that make up an entire picture of a systemic challenge. Let's take a look at this one, for example. Teaching elementary students to be effective writers. The first thing we see are the recommendations themselves. This practice guide has 4 recommendations listed down the left side. Number 1, provide daily time for students to write. 2, teach students to use the writing process for a variety of purposes. 3, teach students to become fluent with handwriting, spelling, sentence construction, typing, and word processing. And 4, creating an engaged community of writers. In most sources, that would be all you get, but the WWC gives you more. Let's look over to the right side. Not all the recommendations have the same value. Number 1 only has minimal evidence to support it. The research provides a rationale for why it would be important, but there's no demonstration in the research that providing daily writing time causes students to become more effective writers. That's really good to know when you're in charge of making decisions about how you're going to allocate your students' time. Recommendation 2 has strong evidence that students need to learn the writing process. When we click the arrow by Show More, we can learn about the recommendation and we can read the documentation and learn more about the writing process for ourselves. Because it's Tier 1, we know that this is where we should be spending our precious preparation time. Tier 1 means that the reviewers had no reservations about the study, that it had at least 350 students, took place across at least 2 school sites, and that it had positive statistical effects. Recommendation 3, which said for us to teach students to become fluent with handwriting, spelling, sentence construction, typing, and word processing, has moderate evidence, which means that while the studies reviewed all supported its use with large sample sizes, multiple sites, and positive statistical effects, the reviewers did have some cause for concern about how the studies were designed or how some other aspect of the study was carried out. Recommendation 4, create an engaged community of writers, has the same designation as Recommendation 1, minimal evidence. Study authors did a good job of providing a rationale for why this is a good idea, but the study didn't provide an experiment to provide support for the intervention being a cause of students becoming effective writers. At the top right, there are links to the summary document or to the full guide. So if we go into the summary document, I want you to notice that listed here are all the materials that you would need to be able to teach this information. For example, the writing process. If you had never been exposed to this before, now you have it and you're able to use it in your classroom tomorrow to teach this with scientifically research-based methods. The other point of entry that we're going to look at are the intervention reports. This is the place where you can look up a certain area of study or a specific curriculum that you're using at your school to see if there has been some research done on it. Let's say that your school is using Read 180. So we enter that into the keyword area and click search. We're given a list of documents that reference that curriculum. We're interested only in intervention reports, so we're going to click the check mark off of reviews of individual studies. We're left with 2 reports, both on the effectiveness of this program with students in 4th to 10th grade. The top report is working with typically developing adolescents, and the bottom one is working specifically with students with learning disabilities. Notice the difference in how these are rated for those populations. Let's take a look at the report for the typically developing students that has strong evidence of its effectiveness. First off, I want to mention that one of the Clearinghouse's main features is they only look at research that is strong from the beginning. It has to pass a high bar to even be included in their review. And of 39 studies that were even eligible, only 9 were actually included. There wasn't enough data on alphabetics to even assign a tier, which isn't very surprising because alphabetics includes letter identification, phonemic awareness, phonics, phonological awareness, and print awareness. And these are concepts that generally wouldn't be included in reading interventions at this level anyway. Read 180 did a great job with comprehension and literacy achievement and even increasing reading fluency. You can dig into all sorts of details over on this side or even download the entire intervention report here. Where else are you going to find this kind of information that isn't full of marketing on the curricula that you're using at your schools? I hope you've enjoyed learning about the What Works Clearinghouse. When I first learned about it, it blew my mind that we had free access to all that information about what works for teaching kids. And that's why it had to be one of the first videos that I made for this channel. If you've got a lead on something that you'd love to see a video for on this channel, please let me know in the comments. Was this information new to you? Do you think you'll take a look at the What Works Clearinghouse now? That's all I've got for you this week, but before we go, please take just half a second to like this video because each time you interact with my videos, it tells YouTube's algorithm that these videos are worth spreading around to others. And of course, share this with someone who you think could benefit from becoming part of this online community. So, until next time, stay strong, stay healthy, and get some rest.